Hey everyone, Rogue Gold here, and with this video I wanted to make an ultimate, definitive guide on how to obtain every exotic that's available in the game right now. I've made a few other exotic review videos letting you guys know how to get certain ones, and it's clear that those are super popular and help a lot of people out. So hopefully this video can be a clear and condensed guide that you can use as a reference anytime you're setting out to go find and farm a new exotic. So how this will work is I'm going to go down the list and state where each exotic can be obtained, what its drop chance is, and if applicable, the best place to farm it. This information I bring is all thanks to data mined info that people had just before or right around the expansion launching, and so far it hasn't failed me when I've gone out to farm these exotics, so I'm quite certain with its accuracy. And before we get into it, I will be leaving timestamps for each of the exotics in the description, so you can skip around to the exact one you're trying to find out about. If there are multiple that drop from the same way, then they will all have the same timestamp. Additionally, for any exotic that I've already done a video on that goes more in depth or provides a fully fleshed farming strategy, a link to that video will be right there with the name and timestamp in the description. Ready? Let's go. First up, let's start with the two exotics that are new to Warlords, those being the Ravenous and Regulus, which are a rifle and pistol respectively. We start with these two because they're actually the only two exotics that it's unknown how you acquire them thus far. I didn't want to just leave them out and have people ask in the comments why they aren't on the list, because yeah, no one knows as of now. My friend and I have some speculation that the Ravenous could be the new raid exclusive exotic, but we'll have to wait and see on those two. Next up, we have what I like to call the standard exotic drop pool, and that's because these are all the ones that can drop from any source given you've already acquired them via their original source, but I'll get to that. Let's just list off what this one contains. We have the Liberty, Merciless, Diamondback, Sweet Dreams, Nemesis, Chatterbox, Pestilence, Dodge City Holster, BTSU gloves, Sawyer's Kneepads, and the Chameleon. So basically, once you acquire these exotics for the first time, they enter the standard drop pool for you. That means these are the ones you can get from exotic caches and heroic missions most notably. For the heroic missions, there's an 8% drop chance to receive any of these from either invaded or non-invaded missions or strongholds on heroic difficulty. And if the exotic you want in this pool is targeted on something you can set to heroic that day, the chances of getting that one are even greater. Speaking of targeted, you can also just get them from anywhere, including targeted loot, activities in the open world, the raid, DZ, you name it. But again, that's only if you've already acquired them. So what if you haven't yet? I'm not going to go fully in depth on the quest chain for all of these because that would be way too long, but if a separate video is more applicable, I'll recommend that as we go through them here. For the Liberty, it comes from a quest chain involving the Capitol building and Ridgeway. I recommend looking up a video for this one. For the Merciless, it drops from hyena bosses. Oftentimes, I've seen Jefferson Trade Center be the popular one to farm, and this is one of the many exotics on this list and in this video that fall under the scaling drop chance system, which I'm probably going to explain many times in case people are skipping around. Basically, what it means is that the higher difficulty you set your mission or world difficulty to, the higher drop chance it gets. It goes as follows. Normal is a 1% drop chance, hard is 3%, challenging 5%, and heroic 7%. So yeah, hyena bosses under that drop chance system to get the Merciless. Moving on to the Diamondback, it's the completion reward for the first time you complete all 3 wings of Kenley College. The Sweet Dreams drops from outcast bosses using the same scaling drop chance system, so 1, 5, 3, and 7% chance for the difficulties respectively, and DCD headquarters is going to be your best farm for the Sweet Dreams there. Then we have the Nemesis, which involves a quest chain with the invaded strongholds. I recommend looking up a video for that one. The Chatterbox similarly involves a quest chain with hyena boxes. A separate video for that one would be my recommendation. Then we have the Pestilence, which drops from the DZ exclusively, and again, that's only if you haven't gotten it before. After that, it can and will drop from sources outside the DZ too. Next, the Dodge City Holster comes from a project that you can buy from Anaya at the crafting bench in the White House, and this one should be self-explanatory in-game, but if you need additional guidance on it, there's plenty of videos out there. Then the BTSU gloves come from Camp White Oak main mission with the same 1, 3, 5, 7 drop scaling system. The Sawyer Kneepads, as far as I know, are still random drops from any source for their initial acquisition, so I just recommend targeted Kneepads for that one. And then lastly, we have the Chameleon, which is the same deal. It's a random drop for the first time. I've seen a lot of people getting it from bounties this patch, so that would be my recommendation. Okay, I think that's all for this section. Sorry if that was a lot of info, but those ones are all interconnected, so I just wanted to cover them all at once. Just for clarification, one more time, those methods I just listed are only necessary if you didn't already have those exotics at level 30. If you did, they're a random drop from anywhere in the world, and targeted loot will be your best friend when hunting those down. Moving on, we come to the Coyote's mask, which is the new exotic mask with Warlords. As I'm sure many of you know, this is a reward along the season Season Track at level 35, but additionally the devs have said on State of the Game that they have added it as a drop from the Hyena boss named Coyote, which is the end boss for Jefferson Trade Center, and that is using the scaling drop chance system. If you didn't watch the section right before this, that means the higher difficulty you set the mission to, the higher drop chance the item has. It goes as follows: 1% for normal, 3% for hard, 5% for challenging, and 7% for heroic. So yeah, Season Track or Jefferson Trade Center for that one. Next up, the NinjaBike Messenger Kneepads are exclusive to supply drops in the DZ, and those come at a 3% drop chance. And to clarify, that's only from opening the supply drop itself, not killing the bosses there. I'd recommend the non-invaded DZs if you're farming this one, that being because there's 3 drops, all of which are easier than the invaded DZ ones, and they're less contested by players. Moving on, we have the Imperial Dynasty Exotic Holster, and this one comes from the 2 cleaner main missions in New York from the final boss, so that's Kajika in Pathway Park and Conley in Stranded Tinker. You can run whichever one you want. I did Conley just because it seemed a bit quicker, and this one uses the scaling drop chance system I've been mentioning throughout the video, but if you've been skipping around, that means it has a higher chance the higher difficulty you set the mission on. 1% chance for normal, 3% on hard, 5% on challenging, and 7% on heroic. Next, the new Tardigrade armor system chest piece, and this one comes from any True Sons boss in the game. It could be a mission, open world boss, bounty, whatever. I got mine from the Viewpoint Museum, however the best method of farming this, in my eye, is the Lincoln Memorial main mission. That's because it's relatively short, and there's several bosses at the end. This uses the scaling drop chance system. If you didn't hear it in another section of the video, that means the drop chance increases the higher difficulty your mission or world tier is set to, depending on whether you're farming a mission or the open world. It goes as follows: 1% for normal, 3% for hard, 5% for challenging, and 7% for heroic. Next on the list, we have the new Acosta Go Bag Exotic Backpack, and this one comes from any faction chest in the game. It could be the old ones in DC or the new ones in New York. And this one drops at a 3% rate from those chests regardless of your world difficulty. I'd recommend going through and farming the ones in DC just because there are more of them and a lot more densely packed, and it's pretty easy to do now because the devs have gone and marked those chests on your map once you discover them. Alright, then we have the Lady Death, and this has a 3% drop chance from any open world boss in New York City. I have a video on this that goes way in depth and shows you the best and most efficient way to farm this one, and so that'll be linked down alongside the timestamp in the description. And no, since I've gotten the question a million times on that video, the world difficulty does not matter when doing this one. Whether you're on normal or rogue, it's a 3% chance. My bad for not including that in the video last time. Next up, the Eagle Bear, that elusive gun that dropped from the raid in year 1, is still only dropped from the raid. I could be wrong on my numbers here, and so if I am, I apologize, but I believe it's a 1% chance to drop from any of the 4 raid bosses, and then a 10% chance to drop from that final chest. Even if those numbers aren't entirely accurate, the concept of them is, it's a much higher chance to come from the box than it is from those bosses. Then we have the Bullet King, which is the new exotic LMG that never has to be reloaded. This one comes from the 2 Rikers main missions in New York City from their respective final bosses. So that's Dragov in Wall Street and Parnell in the Tombs. And there seems to be a divide in the community as to which mission is better to farm. A lot of people say the Tombs is better, but I hate playing that final boss fight over and over again, so I ran Wall Street to get mine. Honestly, it's just personal preference. And this one utilizes the scaling drop chance system. If you didn't hear about it elsewhere in the video yet, that means that it has a higher chance to drop the higher up in difficulty you go. So 1% chance on normal, 3% chance on hard, 5% on challenging, and 7% on heroic. And last but certainly not least, we have the Bighorn Exotic AUG AR. And most people probably know by now, but if you didn't, it comes exclusively from the final bosses of legendary missions, and that's at a 5% drop rate. Personally, I'd recommend farming District Union for this one because it's technically the easiest. However, Roosevelt Island is the only one that actually has 2 bosses, and they can be cheesed by just not jumping down to the final area and shooting them from the safety of the tower. So if your team is up for a bigger challenge, you could run Roosevelt and have 2 chances of it dropping. Alright guys, well that should be all 22 of the current exotics in the game, including the 2 that we don't yet know how to get. And this is as of TU 8.4, not that I think any of this is going to get changed soon, but in case it does, this obviously won't cover those new changes. I hope this guide helped you guys out in learning where and how you can get the exotics that you want, and hopefully now you can go out and get them for yourself. I'll remind everyone once more that if I've already done a video on any of these exotics that go more in depth on my review of it and all that, it'll be linked in the description alongside the exotic's name and the timestamp, so feel free to go check those out if it's one of the ones you are interested in. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe with notifications on so you can be updated every time I upload. Until the next one, guys, Rogue Gold, out.